everyone, and welcome to the Morris Chamber and Morris County Economic Development Corporation's annual Business Growth event. I'm so glad you could all join us today. At the Chamber and the EDC, we continue to fulfill our mission to educate, facilitate, convene, advocate, now virtually. Thanks to the generous sponsorships of Porzio Bromberg and Newman and TD Bank, we can continue to put on informative programs such as this for our members and the business community. We all know that Morris County is truly an extraordinary place, and this is in large part because of you and your organizations. Business Growth Forum, we focus optimistically on just that, growing your business. We hear from businesses that have discovered ways to succeed and thrive and serve their clients despite these challenging times, and professionals who specialize in areas to help your business survive and thrive during the COVID crisis and beyond. I would like to thank you, our chamber members, and the business community for all that you do to employ members of the community and provide goods and services that people want or need. MCEDC is a partnership between the Chamber, the County Commissioners, and the business community. Our mission is to serve you. Our mission is your success, and our mission is to ensure that you have the best knowledge to succeed in your mission. We're fortunate to have members that provide valuable advice and services to other businesses to make sure that they survive and thrive, now more than ever, to help get us through this crisis. If you have any additional questions, please reach out to me directly, Megan Huncher, or Ed Ramirez, the Director of Business Development at the Morris County EDC. You can visit our website as morrischamber.org or morriscountyedc.org. Ivan Mendez from the NJEDA, who will discuss important programs that are available or will be available soon to help your business. Ivan?
Thank you, Megan. Good afternoon, everybody. What I would like to do is tell you guys exactly or a little bit about who the NJEDA is, what we have done traditionally, and what we have become during the crisis. We are a small and mid-sized commercial lender. We both have microloans and mid-sized larger loans for the larger companies. The microloans we fund ourselves, and they're up to $50,000. The larger loans we partner up with banks across New Jersey to provide a more affordable package for the mid-size, anywhere from $100,000 to $2 million, that community. Those are for equipment and for real estate acquisitions. And we are in a second lien position on those type of loans. Aside from that, I would like to go on into the COVID stuff, which is the more important stuff this past 2020. At the EDA, we've had 3 different phases of COVID grant money that range anywhere from $1,000 to $10,000 throughout each one of these phases. Those are currently not available anymore. They're still being worked on. We hope there might be more money in the future, but we just don't know that right now. We've also had 1 phase of a loan program, which was a term of up to $100,000 for a 10-year term, 0% interest for the first 5 years, and no payments for the first year. A really, really aggressive product for the small business community in regards to this COVID crisis. Aside from that, I do want to talk about some of the biggest challenges were, as you know, the money went really fast. If you weren't logged on at 9 in the morning, chances are you may have gotten phased out of the first phase 1 and phase 2 of the program. Phase 3 captured a bigger audience of that. Nevertheless, the biggest challenge we had is businesses not having their financial documents available in PDF form. These things range from formation documents, the last 2 most recent personal tax returns and business tax returns, if that's how you file, and personal financials. Have these ready in PDF format. There might be something coming up very, very soon. The next site, the link, is very important for you to write down. I'll say this slowly so you can write it down. https://cv.business.nj.gov. Any press releases that we give out in terms of COVID relief will be stated there first. Please write this link down and check during the next couple of days. You may find njeda.com. You'll see more information about our traditional core programs there, including that microloan program, which might help a lot of people. Thank you. And if you have any questions, I'm sure our information will be made available after this presentation.
Wonderful. Thank you, Ivan. Thank you for being a partner with our EDCs and our banks to help support our business community in New Jersey. And now I'd like to turn the program over to Deirdre Wheatley-Liss, who is a partner with Porzio, Bromberg, and Newman. Porzio is a member of our business cabinet, and Deirdre would like to say a few words. Thank you, Deirdre.
Well, first, I just want to say thank you. Thank you so much for inviting us to speak today. While Porzio is a full-service law firm, when I say we, Pam, can you raise your hand and introduce yourself? Hi, Pam Capsamales. Pam's my partner who runs our corporate department. We are so passionate about serving owners of closely held businesses. Closely held businesses employ the majority of individuals in the United States. With everything that was going on in COVID, I don't know about you, but I was constantly seeing how a business, the most overused word, pivoted. I say it exercised ingenuity. Imagine a year ago today on January 13th of 2020, what your business plan was, and the fact that it was out the window by March 17th of 2020. It's amazing what we've done. What we're looking to do here today is, and we love being able to sponsor this, is to look forward. What is it that businesses can do to grow in the environment that we're here today? Ivan, thank you very much for sharing with us some information regarding what kind of financial assistance might be available. We have the team here from TD Bank who's going to be talking about how you can best partner with your banking relationships. And Pam's going to be talking about a lot of best practices around, as you're growing your business, how do you do things such as keep a PDF record of all your organizational documents in the event that you need them on a dime, they're available for you. Some of those practical things. So thank you so much for the opportunity, and I look forward to hearing from our fellow panelists today.
And now I'd like to introduce Mr. Joseph Nalback with TD Bank. TD Bank is also a member of our Mars Business Cabinet. Joe.
So thank you, Megan, and fellow panelists. It's great to be with all of you here, at least in a virtual environment. I think we probably would all agree we'd probably prefer to be at some other setting, but it's good to be in a position to share ideas, share experiences and ideas and suggestions, and see how we could come out of this a lot stronger. I always say one of the things I enjoy most about my job and my attitude when I come to work every day, or at least log on every day in today's times, is I get an opportunity to be both the teacher and the student. So I'm looking forward to today's content. Hope everyone is doing well. I'll give you a little indication in terms of I run the team here for Morris and part of Essex County, and I would tell you I'm happy to report that that from our view, our economy is faring pretty well from a volume standpoint. Here locally in Morris and West Essex, in our footprint, TD Bank's footprint in the U.S., in the nation, and actually in our local market, PANJ, we're actually second. So we continue to support small businesses. It seems like many are doing well. And I always, when I talk about volume, I always make sure that I talk about delinquency. And fortunately, our loans are being paid current. We don't see a lot of delinquency in the portfolio. So looking forward to coming out of this into to the remainder of the year and learning and getting stronger. So thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Joe. So now I'd like to turn the program over to Deirdre, who will moderate the panel, and she'll introduce our panelists this afternoon. Deirdre, you just have to unmute yourself.
Unmuted. Thank you all. So I'm going to probably go around, and Lois, ask you to introduce yourself last because you're in the bottom corner of what I'm doing. So Richard, can you introduce yourself to the panel, please?
Vice President of Sales for Modern Facilities and Tri-B Industries. We are a 39-year-old family-owned company based in New Jersey. Our focus is in janitorial and building maintenance services. A lot of our portfolio is focused in mass transit and industrial type environments like MTA, PATH train system, Newark Airport, LaGuardia. And we also have a real strong presence in healthcare throughout Long Island and New York, and urgent care facilities and hospitals. Our model, if you just want me to introduce you want me to share our experiences? Is that all you would like from me at this point? Okay, you're muted.
Sorry. I thought the introduction was nice because I want to bookend it with Lois, and I'm going to suggest to you that being in the janitorial area with all of the resulting issues from COVID, you may have had a very different experience than many business owners did. If I can just go through the panelists that are here. So Pam, if you can just briefly introduce yourself, and then Sean.
Thanks, Deirdre. I'm lucky to be Deirdre's partner. I'm head of the corporate department at Porzio. We've been very busy this year, working with everything from startups to mid-size to large companies, helping businesses through this COVID crisis. And I hope to share some insight going forward as to some preventive measures that we can work with.
Excellent. Thank you. Sean?
I'm a Vice President Relationship Manager at TD Bank. I work for Joe Nalback, supporting Morris and then part of Essex County, and help businesses with all their banking needs, lending and depository. And similar to Pam, looking forward to providing my insights on maybe what some of our specific customers did through the pandemic.
Excellent. And Lois, can you introduce yourself, please? And you're on mute. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Lois. I own Fitness Knocking. We are a virtual and in-person personal training service where we send our team out to someone's home or meet them virtually or outdoors. We also work with corporations building different health programs regarding seminars and group exercise classes and health and wellness programs that can be a continuation of morale building and hopefully getting people feeling better from the inside out and de-stressing.
Excellent. So Richard, going back to your experience as a business owner, obviously you had to make a lot of unanticipated changes in the beginning of the year. And some of those challenges that you may have struggled with was demand that was greater than you normally have, as well as potentially being able to appropriately staff things given CDC guidelines. Since this is a growth forum, could you maybe just talk about those challenges that you have then turned into potentially opportunities in 2021 and how you're looking to grow in 2021? And you're on mute right now, sir.
Yeah, it is a very unique story because we were really literally in the heart of it. Our staff, our company being in transit in the airports and in the train stations. It's very interesting. One aspect, since the traffic was down, we were getting cuts to our personnel. But it turned out that the enhanced disinfection and cleaning that they wanted to prevent the spread outweighed that. And we actually were up as a net. So, and in fact, in our healthcare environment, where we were servicing over 150, 200 urgent care facilities normally every night, we had to up that staffing. So really in the first, March, April, May, June, we had to actually add 400 people to our company, and it was very, very challenging. So we had a large growth because of this, unfortunately, or fortunately, however you want to look at it. But the challenges within that were, staying on top of all the CDC guidelines and making sure we're in compliance with our PPE, getting our PPE, being able to buy it somewhere, to be able to put on the stuff that the people were requesting. So this has led to, us really understanding and focusing a little bit more and looking for technology and that type of thing. So what we're going to be doing in 2021 is really broadening our portfolio outside of the healthcare and the mass transit, and we have a footprint in some office buildings and office environments. But what we're going to be focusing on in 2021 is going after the small to mid-sized offices, buildings and buildings of that nature. And we have a very unique concept where there's some cutting edge product out there called antimicrobial shielding. I don't know if anybody's heard of it. You actually coat a surface after you disinfect it with it, and it resides on the surface, no matter what's cloth or table, metal, whatever, and prevents any pathogen from being able to live on it. Flu, COVID virus, what have you. So our plan is to go out to market with a new concept where it's an all-encompassing thing for the business owner. And this is important because what we'll be doing is providing a cleaning service, the disinfecting, heightened disinfecting service, along with having messaging throughout the building with QR codes on the walls. This is what your owner, this is what the company's doing to protect you. And also help with the CDC compliance and state and local government compliances, making sure the business owner is in compliance with that, forms, whatever they need to fill, and also to minimize their liability through any potential legal matters they may have with their employees. So, bringing our industrial cleaning style to the business owner, providing all these 4 or 5 steps of, totally encompassing safe strategy of returning to work. That's something we'll be focusing in 2021.
So you mentioned the word compliance several times, and I'm looking at Ms. Capsamalis, who, as a corporate attorney, compliance is what she focuses in. So Pam, for a company that's maybe looking at growth, and Richard, what comes to mind also is you're going to be helping companies bring employees potentially back to the workspace, if that makes sense.
Exactly.
Are there like some thoughts that you might have for our audience around things to consider in addition to antimicrobial shields, if I got that one properly, when they're looking at potentially bringing employees back into the workplace at this point in time?
It's a very hot issue right now, Deirdre, and we're working steadfast on creating policies for businesses that enable the employees to come back with the vaccine. So if you are a private company, by law, you can require your employees to have that vaccine with some exceptions. And those exceptions include disability, having a reasonable accommodation for someone that falls under the ADA, if you have a religious excuse or some other medical reasoning that is reasonable under the circumstances. So we've been creating those policies and procedures that companies would have that require the employees to come back to have that vaccine, to show the proof of the vaccination, and allow them to resume work.
Excellent. So Lois, if I can ask you, and I'm just going to again presume here that working in the personal training environment, that you potentially did not experience the unexpected growth that Richard did as a result of the pandemic. So what are your plans for growth this year? And how are you looking to maybe learn from some of the experiences last year to be able to move forward with your business?
So I learned a lot this year. I definitely did. We lost in the first month of the pandemic, we lost about 30% of our revenue due to many people being afraid, and for a combination of reasons, from financial reasons, of course. Many of our clients are business owners or C-suite within companies that either saw a huge drop of revenue, et cetera. So we were already fortunately somewhat positioned for this because we were doing virtual training for some clients when they travel already. So we already had experience doing it for a few years. So I think that was one thing that put us in a good position to begin with. But I think one area that I know that I wanted to make a major shift in for 2021 is to continue to diversify my client portfolio and not just focus on one specific area within the exercise realm. We really focus on being laser targeted on only focusing on around the exercise world. That being said, we've had quite a few new clients, which is fantastic from the corporate side, who have been looking for new and inventive and creative ways of improving morale and decreasing the stress amongst the employee base, because people are working from home, people are oftentimes back-to-back appointments. So that's something that we've helped quite a few companies, which is really exciting. So I feel like that is something that I want to continue to do to kind of balance out the number of one-to-one clients we have. I'd like that to be closer to 50%, whereas right now it's about 80% of our revenue, and bring up this side of the corporate side to kind of match that. So now, even though we're still building on the one-on-one side, but we're also building the corporate side to affect more change, and also to balance out the times where if there's some fear around the virus or anything else that comes along, down the line that we have hours available for our team to continue to work. Some of the other plans that I have for 2021 are to continue to use the 5 W's, which if you're not familiar with my 5 W's, it's wear a mask, wipe surfaces, wash your hands, watch your distance, and then we stay home if we're not feeling well or if the client is not feeling well in any way, shape, or form. Also, of course, this is something that I talk to my clients about all the time, but it's something that I'm really focused on, is making sure that we're focusing on future goals. We're always going back to our future. What do we want to see happen? And then working on those day to day or week to week until they're recitable and reproducible and predictable so that we can do that. And then, of course, continuing to revamp all of our systems and our operations. My team is very wonderful about operations and following systems, but we can always do better, and looking to my team for their experiences and the things that are working and not working. And then, of course, like I said earlier, was to continue to diversify our portfolio of client base.
So I think it's interesting because Richard and Lois, you both mentioned diversifying. Richard, you're extending your business line into other places, and Lois, you're building it, moving your one-on-one to your corporate. So Joe, let me ask you, when you've been counseling your clients, in the past 12 months, have you seen, an interest in diversification of product line, either necessarily or intentionally, as a theme for many of the small businesses here in Northern New Jersey and Morris County? And you're on mute, sir. Sorry. There you go.
Great. Yeah, so without a doubt, you mentioned the word pivot, but obviously that was a common theme. So, I have one client that, really sells right into, I would say the epicenter of the pandemic. Restaurants, cruise ships, and school cafeterias and convention centers. So obviously, and he was having he had a great calendar quarter for the first quarter. Had a great backlog, but as you can imagine, that pretty much April and May, all the sales went away. He's a very seasoned manager, and where he was able to pivot was to really, understand the fact and understand his business and understand the fact that as food services was going to begin to reopen, it was going to be different. And so he developed a lot of the shields that you see, when you're out, whether in the retail stores or in some maybe buffet lines, if you enjoy those. But he changed his business manufacturing from doing utensils and dinnerware to making the plexiglass plates. And he was quick. And by then he had a lot of great relationships in China, because that's where he brings a lot of his product in. So he was quick to make the contacts he needed to make and offer an alternative product line.
That's a great story, and I'm sure with our audience that there's so many of them that have had to make those quick decisions as well in terms of new product lines that they're going to be offering. Another thing that you both talked about, Richard, both in the business that you're doing, which is really in the safety area when extending the janitorial services. And then Lois, you mentioned your 5 W's, which all seem to be around from the safety area. Pam, if I can ask, I think that a lot of business owners still have concerns about the physical environment. The CDC, not just CDC, all of the regulatory agencies were dropping guidance like they were apple seeds, coming out to be able to do that. So can you maybe give the audience some tips as what are some best practices that they can think about, not only from an implementation standpoint, but because you're an attorney, from a documentation standpoint, because if you don't end up having the documentation and there's a problem, your implementation may be at issue. If you can maybe comment on that.
Sure, Deirdre. What we've been dealing with from the documentation point of view for companies is making sure that when we make claims in the future that we have all our ducks in order. So what does that mean? A lot of businesses have had a significant decrease in revenue. have had major issues with expenses, as we know, following the CDC guidelines. And we look at their budget, and they are unable to have operating expenses that they normally do because they can't use their property. They can't use their office space. You look at offices across New Jersey, and they have a huge vacancy rate. So we want to make sure that going forward, our leases that we're working with are crafted in such a way so that we can accommodate for a pandemic situation. So I've been working with landlords and tenants to make sure that you have appropriate lease clauses so that if this pandemic continues, if there's a significant reduction in rate, we look at percentages, if it's more than 50%, that you get a rent abatement. Landlords are very apt to work with you right now because they don't want empty spaces. So that's been a critical component. Another is your insurance broker. Bring in your insurance broker and work with them. New Jersey is making historic paths towards insurance claims. It's interesting, there's a Franklin Mutual Insurance Company had a case recently. The whole concept of business interruption insurance was lost during COVID. So many companies who had business interruption insurance weren't able to get compensation through their insurance companies, but now that's changing. COVID presented the largest number of insurance claims in history. So it's over $300 billion of business losses. In New Jersey, we're one of those great states that the courts are looking at. It's not the destruction of the property. You didn't have to burn down your business. You just actually had to have loss, meaning a loss of ability to use the property. So you need to work with your insurance broker and make sure that they're on board with that. And if you're not, then change insurance brokers and make sure that you have that appropriate language that you can use for your business going forward, and you have a good relationship with them. And I'll talk about other aspects of this depending on the type of business you are and in drafting your agreements. But I would say, Deirdre, those the critical elements that I've been seeing and I would recommend going forward.
So Richard, I want to turn back to, you are engaging in a lot of growth. And when you engage in growth, you have to invest in growth. What kinds of investments, and I'm not just talking financial, but as you're looking, you have a plan of growth in 2021, you obviously have objectives that you want to achieve. You mentioned that you had to grow your staff by 400 people last year. What kinds of investments do you see yourself as a business owner need to make to be able to reach those objectives in the 2021 environment?
Well, in our company, in our business, a lot of our accounts come from bidding environment where you're bidding amongst other competitors in a state type of bid, or the Port Authority and so forth. So we have very little infrastructure right now currently is for advertising or Salesforce or anything of that nature, because all we're doing is pulling bids off of computer programs. So to get this new footprint that we're looking for with this new very exciting concept that I mentioned to you about giving the business owner that confidence and the employees when they're coming back that they have a professional company that is so experienced in disinfecting in an industrial environment, being able to bring those type of teams and knowledge to the business owner, we have to invest in advertising. We have to get the message out that, we're a new player in this, Google Ads and stuff of that nature. So because the message itself may seem simple, but there's really no one really out there doing it currently, where we're going to offer the cleaning and the protection. I have a saying, it's not just good enough to disinfect. You have to disinfect and protect, because the minute you disinfect a surface, the next person that touches it has contaminated it. So with this antimicrobial shielding that's out there, and the challenge with that is there's a lot of bad antimicrobial shielding companies out there. We signed an exclusive agreement with a company that is the only one that has the COVID kill test, independent third-party COVID kill test, along with efficacies of them lasting 30, 60, and even 90 days by independent laboratories. There's a lot of companies out there that are slapping their name on 20-year-old product, and they're taking advantage of the situation. And we use specialized, sprayers, that are air assisted. We're not going out there with a little bug sprayer and pumping it and saying, okay, and charging you, So we get this message out to the business community that we're a professional company that has a great intensive experience. I mean, my goodness, we were doing the paratransit vans, vehicles for the entire New York City transit. We did over 7,000 vehicles, disinfecting them and then protecting them with the antimicrobial shielding. We worked hand in hand with the governor's office. We were a major player in the COVID-19 response team for New York State. So we want to bring that message and tell people that that's what we are doing. Now we're bringing it to 5,000 square foot office, a 100,000 square foot building, and giving them this program, not just cleaning, cleaning, disinfecting, protecting, messaging to the employees so they feel comfortable and make sure all their ducks in a row as far as their paperwork and compliance. Every one of our 700 plus employees, every single one of them show up to work every single day. They have to answer 6 questions, and they have to acknowledge that answer those 6 questions, and those all questions are related to: have you had any contact with someone with COVID?
Right.
Have you? And we take their temperature and we record that temperature and we save that document, and that document goes into our file. So if there is a COVID outbreak, in one of our locations, because we're not all in one office, we're spread out. So if there's a COVID outbreak out there, we can pull that documentation out. We can say, hey, listen, we did our due diligence. We asked them, we asked her, we took their temperature. They said they had no symptoms. We did the best we could. So, bringing that message, we're going to have to invest in advertisement and getting it out there. And if anybody's on this that wants to learn more, you can give me a call. But that's what we're looking for in 2021. We'll still grow within our existing environment and stuff of that nature, but we're really very interested in the reopening market, if you will.
Okay. So Lois, let me ask you the same question. When you're defining what does it mean to invest in growth in 2021, what does that look for you like as a business owner? And you're on mute, please, ma'am.
Yeah, so I've realized that I can't do it all. As a small business owner, that I do need help. So one of the things that I need to do moving forward, and it's something that I've struggled with for years, is asking for help when I need it, and looking for personal growth to at least understand the basics of certain things to be able to step in when needed. For example, when the beginning of the pandemic hit, I wanted to make sure my staff was paid for and my bills were paid for. That was more important than any of the extra things that I had going. And one of those things was marketing. And my marketing person did everything for me. He did all my social media. He did my website updates. And when you don't have somebody doing it, you don't realize how much goes into it. So learning the basics of all of those job descriptions was something that I've invested quite a bit of my personal time doing. And I've gotten pretty good at it. Not as, I'm sure, certainly not as good as they would. But coming forward and moving back into this year, even though I can do it, doesn't necessarily mean I should. And I think that's a good message for all business owners. Doesn't necessarily mean that you should take your time if you have the ability to afford to pay someone else to do it, and instead you're bringing new business in or doing something else, to hire someone who's an expert in that industry, or look to educate someone that's on your team and help to grow and invest in them as well. I'm also I'm in the process right now. I just put out the Indeed post yesterday on hiring a business development manager. And I'm doing that for a couple of reasons, but primarily to expand my day-to-day reach. Most of our business comes right now from referrals and people that I know at the Morris County Chamber and the other places I network, where I'm invested time and energy, and I give a lot, and those kinds of things are great, but they take a lot of time to do. So hiring someone else to kind of duplicate my efforts on a day-to-day is something that I want to look to do this year. And then I've also, something that I didn't realize how much of a big deal it is, but building a relationship with a member of a bank. I never realized how big of a deal that was. And it sounds like such a silly thing, but building a relationship with someone that I know at a local bank helped me with the bank that I was banking with. I wasn't even banking with them at the time, and they were willing to sit down and talk to me and give me the right questions to ask and the right things to say to my bank about helping me get the PPP. And that was instrumental in being able to keep my team on board and keep them working, even if the new revenue wasn't coming in to replace and do what I needed to do on a monthly basis from a financial perspective. But I totally agree with what Richard said about documentation of all the forms and everything, and being diligent about making sure that that's something that goes forward. And even going into 2021, where more and more people are getting vaccinated, to still remain diligent, because just because some people are vaccinated doesn't necessarily mean you can't pass it along still. So still staying masked appropriately, still making sure that you're following my 5 Ws or whatever your system is, to keeping safe. And also, of course, encouraging more companies to invest in their people, because at the end of the day, if you don't have good people working with you alongside in the down times, you're not necessarily going to be able to grow when you're in the up times. And supporting them and treating them as valuable members of your establishment or your company, and making sure that that they feel that love and compassion, and that it's not all about the bottom line as much as it's about the people over profit. And part of how we do that within my company is, just even simple things. It doesn't necessarily have to cost you a lot. It can be just a quick text. Hey, I really appreciate what you did in that meeting the other day, and encouraging them from that perspective. But it could also mean giving them a seminar on stress management, or giving them an exercise class or a yoga class or something like that to center themselves. So I plan on continuing to invest in my team and continuing to give them opportunities for growth, and giving them opportunities for education as well, which I think that the more we know, the better we can be for not only our clients, but the better we can feel about ourselves and our own self-actualization within the world, and making the world a better place.
I like that. So I just want to remind everybody the Q&A is open. So if you do have any questions for our panelists and our business owners, Ivan, if I can ask you on the investment front, how have you, on more of a statewide basis, shall we say, potentially seen companies looking at investing for growth in 2021, maybe in new ways that some of the business owners that are on the webinar today might be able to take into their hat as they're doing their plan for this year?
Primarily in 2020, we've seen a trend where at the very beginning, I deal mainly with the mid-sized businesses. So a lot of businesses looking to purchase new warehouse space. So we saw some type of businesses stall their plans, and others move up their plans. I had one client who was let's call them a very, very small Amazon type of business. So they needed to purchase warehouse space ASAP. So it helped them. But the more the focus has been on COVID, to be honest with you, we have all hands on deck right now with all these programs. Although we do still service our different territories, and always willing to answer questions and help them along with different their business needs. But in terms of, it varies in terms of what direction we're seeing everybody go. I guess it's more business specific.
Yeah, well, which is just like our two business owners here today that I think had two very different immediate in April experiences from each other. So Sean, if I can ask you a question, I think that the SBA became superbly popular because of the PPP. I'm pretty sure the SBA existed before 2020. Maybe, for those that are thinking again about growth, not about another round of PPP loans, that they're beyond that. How might they be able to work with a bank to maybe use loan dollars, SBA dollars as a way of financing these new ideas like Lois and Richard have for 2021 for their businesses?
Sure. So the SBA has a bunch of different loan programs, and they partner with the bank. So at TD Bank, we're a preferred lender with the SBA. So we'll work with the SBA to underwrite, whether it be lines of credit. A real popular product right now are the SBA 504 loans, which are for, to Ivan's point, real estate acquisition, where the banks partner with different CDCs around the state to provide secondary financing that allow companies to maybe borrow more than a conventional loan would offer them. I think the key takeaway there is that it helps companies preserve their liquidity. We're, coming into the early stages of the pandemic, we have a saying around the bank that cash is king. So a lot of companies were looking to preserve liquidity. And when you're in a growth mode and you're looking to invest money in your business and to growth and like Richard said, hiring new employees, and Lois mentioned it too, that could be a way where you're kind of accomplishing both. Maybe you're expanding your physical footprint, and at the same time, it allows you to have those dollars to go ahead and invest in your people. And then second, the SBA, to your point, they have been around for a long time. They offer different lines of credit, equipment financing. They'll help startup businesses. So there's really a plethora of different options available. And to Lois's point before, if you have a relationship with a bank, they'll kind of help you determine the best path forward.
So Joe, I just want to ask one more thing about the banking relationship. I represent a lot of business owners. Not every single one of them are successful because finance is, let's call it, their thing. Can you maybe talk about how to the flip side of Lois's point, how a banking relationship can, just the knowledge, having the advisor can help the business owner just overall improve their business?
Right. So, obviously, our objective here is to be one of our phrases in the bank is to be a trusted advisor. And we're in the risk business. It's understanding the risks and understanding the mitigates and coming to a conclusion that you want to support that business. But it is building the relationship. It's having that confidence in the management of the company, in the borrower, and really having transparent conversations. We always say, like, we're not disappointed by bad news. There's always going to be bad news. There's going to be ups and downs in the economy. There's going to be things like COVID that are out of everyone's control. But I think where we have the best relationships, Richard's company, I've had a relationship with that management team since 1996, is where we have transparent conversations and we don't get surprised. I think that the last thing any banker wants is to have the financial statement come in the mail, like sometime in May, and all of a sudden we open it up and the company's experienced a significant loss. They're not adhering to their financial covenants, and we didn't get a heads up about it. We had no prior conversation about it. So I think it's open dialogue, transparent dialogue. And any other relationship, it's about communication. The more you can communicate, the better it is. No surprises. Sean, you did a great job on your answer. I just want to add one or two other things, which I think is important. So part of the recent stimulus was not only the second round of, or actually the third round rather, of the PPP funding, but a very important part was that the SBA increased the guarantee amounts on the 7A loans to 90%. So from 75% to 90%. And in addition to that, on the SBA Express line of credit product, it increased from 50% to 90% as well. So those are important notes. So that's obviously makes those type of loans, a lot more attractive and a lot less risky for the bank. So I just want everyone to be mindful of that as well.
Excellent. So one of the last points that I want to make, and then just so you all know, I want to go into a quick lightning round of, the one piece of information at the end. But before we do, Lois, since I had the ability, the pleasure of interviewing you prior to this, I know that one of the things you're thinking about from an investment and growth perspective is potentially franchising. So there's different ways to look at growing your business. We talked about the great idea about keeping cash, about growing your people, Richard, like you did. Pam, if somebody's maybe looking to expand as part of their innovative growth plan in 2021, if you could just give us, in just a few minutes, what might they need to be thinking about if they're thinking of franchising as a means of growing their existing, already amazing and awesome business?
Absolutely. And I've been very busy, surprisingly, with franchising. And having done that for many, many years, it's interesting to see that growth potential. This is an excellent opportunity to invest in a franchise if you are secure in the business model. So the franchise disclosure document that is required nationally provides the data, the financial information that allows you to look at that model and see whether it's going to work for you. Of course, with an attorney like me that would walk you through that document and point out the key criteria that you need to assess. It's interesting because the movement that I have seen has been in the health and wellness arena. It's also been in takeout, restaurants with takeout features, a pizza business, for instance. But what I have been advising and working with in modeling these franchise agreements is making sure that we have a lease in place that is going to work for your model. And this is a great time to negotiate a lease because there is so much available space. So you can, having that hand in hand with negotiating your franchise fees, working on longer time to get your business up and running because there are certain deadlines in your franchise document. There's a lot of leeway right now. And it's, as I said from the beginning, a really good opportunity to look at a fixed model. If that model has been happening for a while, or if you want to start your own model, this is a great time to create the parameters and go for it.
I like that. So just before we close down, so maybe if we can go through and, 30 seconds max, which one things people need to be thinking about for growth for 2021. For myself, I'm a tax attorney. It hasn't been mentioned. Government spent 4.5 trillion unbudgeted dollars last year. I think that all business owners should anticipate that their tax bills are going up one way or the other and budget for that as they're looking at growing in 2021. Ivan, any last 15 to 30 seconds of advice for our audience?
My advice is the one that I gave during my brief presentation: is have all your financial documents ready in PDF form. I will repeat, there might be something coming up.
I like that. Joe, what about you?
So I'm going to throw a little curveball out there. I'm not going to talk about finance or numbers. So I would encourage everybody to really focus on the human element, the human resources element. And as we start attempting to get back to the workplace, really take a hard look at, who's on your team, what their preferences are going to be, how they've done from an emotional standpoint over the last, now I guess we're on 10 months. And what opportunities that's going to create for you as we get back to the workplace, and what potential hurdles that you're going to have to overcome.
Sounds good. Sean?
Yeah, I would say focus on those relationships. Surround yourself with a good lawyer, a good accountant, and a good banker.
I love that. Richard, what about you? What words of wisdom for our folks looking to grow their businesses in 2021?
Well, we're going to have to eventually get back to the office. So I would be thinking about that now. Like I mentioned, I was thinking about all the different things that are going to go into that. And I think a lot of people are going to have a lot of anxiety about returning to work, vaccine or not. And I think that having something like we're talking about, or other things like Lois is talking about, anything to create and help with that stress, the messaging, making them feel comfortable and safe when they come back, I think that's going to be something every business owner is going to have to think about.
I think that's great. Lois, some final words for our audience here?
I agree 100%. I think with mental and physical health being so important in the workplace, and focusing on what the team needs is so valuable to get their employees to be more productive, less stressed, and require fewer sick days And then, of course, for me personally, as a business owner, keeping head trash at bay by keeping forward focused, what you think you want to happen in your bright future, and continue to focus on that all the time and use coaches if needed, for sure.
I love that. So I just want to wrap up with a couple of themes that I noticed between Richard and Lois, who I have to say have very diverse businesses. So one is, the idea of the safety of your people, your individuals, the health in your space. The business owners need to be focusing on that. The idea of diversifying your business in a way that, forget the word pivot, but we're not changing because we have to, we're changing because we want to, because we see something as being an opportunity. Looking at your people as your greatest resource, even though we're talking about financial resources and investments. And then Joe, I just want to echo what you said about transparency. I think that the value of transparency for any business owner is a way to be able to help them become much more successful, whether, Lois, as you said, in partnering with other people, or looking to develop how they're going to be successful in 2021. So with that, Ms. Hunter, if I could return the podium, the virtual podium, over to you. And we do thank you all for joining us today.
Thank you, Deirdre, and thank you for that expert moderation of our panel. Thank you, panelists, for being with us today. Thank you, Ivan, for joining us from the NJEDA. Thank you to our sponsors, Porzio and TD Bank. Please reach out to Deirdre or Joe or Sean or Pam with any questions. Thank you to our business owners for sharing their stories. Really such a challenging time, and we commend you for all that you've done to survive and thrive during the COVID crisis. So thank you all for being with us today. This has been recorded and will be on our YouTube page. So please visit the Mars Chamber YouTube page to view this and other similar seminars that we've recorded for your benefit. So thank you again, Megan Hunter, President of the Mars Chamber and EDC, signing off. Have a wonderful day.